You know, what happens when the laws of biology just stop working? It sounds like science fiction, right? Well, today we're diving into the life of Paramahansa Yogananda, and his story, it actually begins with a scientific impossibility that happened after he died.
So we're going to do something a little different here. We're not starting at the beginning of his life, but at the very end. And there's a good reason for that. See, what happened after Yogananda passed away? Well, it's a documented event that pretty much challenges everything we think we know about the physical world.
And look, this quote here, this isn't from some ancient spiritual text or a dusty old legend. Nope, this is from a notarized official statement. It's from the director of a major LA mortuary, Forest Lawn. And he issued it weeks after Yogananda's death to describe something that, frankly, they had never, ever seen before.
20. Just let that number sink in. For 20 full days after he died in 1952, Yogananda's body showed absolutely no signs of physical decay. I mean, none. The mortuary officials who were watching this day in and day out, they called it unparalleled. They'd never seen anything like it. No drying out, no mold, not even the slightest bad smell. It just was.
So, okay, this obviously brings up a massive question, right? Who was this person? And how on earth is something like that even possible? To get any kind of answer, we have to rewind. We've got to go all the way back to the beginning, to his childhood in India, which, you'll see, was filled with events that were just as unbelievable.
All right, so let's go back. He was born Mukunda Lal Ghosh in 1893, and right from the get-go, his experience of the world was, well, profoundly different from most kids. Get this, his very first memories, the ones he talked about later in life, they weren't even from this life.
Yeah, he described having these super vivid memories of a past life as a yogi, meditating way up high in the Himalayas. Can you imagine? So from the time he was a tiny baby, he had this incredible, deep longing for God. But at the same time, he was so frustrated because he was stuck in this little baby body that couldn't do or say what he was feeling inside.
And you know, this deep spiritual connection he felt, it wasn't just some abstract idea in his head for very long. It actually showed up in the real world as a physical miracle that would lock in his faith and basically set the entire course for the rest of his life.
So picture this, he's only 8 years old and he gets Asiatic cholera. Back then that was a death sentence. The doctors had totally given up. But his mother, in this last-ditch act of faith, she tells him, just look at this photo. Gaze at the picture of the great master Lahiri Mahasaya. And as he does, as he's just focusing on that picture, this blinding light just fills the room, envelops his whole body, and poof. Just like that, the symptoms are gone. He's instantly, completely healed. For a little kid, what could be more powerful? This was absolute proof that something divine was real, and you could actually connect with it.
So after that incredible healing, he starts to realize, hey, maybe this wasn't just a one-off thing. He began to see that these experiences were part of a whole other reality, like a hidden world that operates on these subtle laws that spiritual masters knew all about. And in that world, the things we think are impossible, they're actually pretty normal.
And then he starts meeting these incredible people, saints who could just casually defy the laws of physics. For instance, he meets this one guy, Swami Prabhupada, who literally appeared in 2 different places at the exact same time just to deliver a message. Then there was Ganda Baba. They called him the perfume saint, and he could make any smell you wanted just appear out of thin air, from the scent of a rose on Mukunda's hand to jasmine on a flower that had no scent. All these encounters started to teach him something huge, that maybe miracles aren't miracles at all. Maybe they're just the result of universal laws that most of us just haven't learned about yet.
So you can imagine, seeing all this stuff just fueled this fire in him, this overwhelming desire. He had to find his own teacher, his own master, someone who could explain how all this worked. And so, at just 12 years old, he decides that's it. I'm taking matters into my own hands.
And off he went. The great Himalayan quest was on. He and a couple of friends sneak out of Calcutta thinking they're home free, but the whole plan starts falling apart almost immediately. One of his friends gets totally freaked out by stories about taming tigers with your mind, so he just bails and takes his money with him. Meanwhile, Mukunda's sharp older brother Ananta figures out what's going on and sends telegrams to all the train stations up a line. So of course, by the time they get to Hardwar, right at the foot of the Himalayas, the police are just waiting for them. Journey over. But you know, even though he failed, it just goes to show you that incredible laser-like focus he had.
And this is a really key point. His whole journey, it wasn't really about chasing after cool tricks or miracles. Not at all. It was a search for a teacher, a guru who could lay out the science behind it all. He wanted to understand the system, the actual mechanics that made the impossible possible. And that thing he was searching for, it had a name: Kriya Yoga. Now, this wasn't just some vague philosophy. It was laid out as a spiritual science. The whole idea is, if you can master these very specific techniques for controlling your breath and your energy, you can quiet down all the noise, all the static from your five senses. And when you do that, it allows you to directly plug into a higher state of consciousness, which is said to be the very source where all these miracles come from.
And that really brings us to the big, final question here, doesn't it? When you look at the whole story of Paramahansa Yogananda, from those crazy childhood memories to the, phenomenal state of his body after death, it forces you to wonder, what if these things we call miracles, what if they aren't breaking the laws of nature at all? What if they're just demonstrations of other, more subtle laws that we just don't know about yet? If that's true, what does that say about the real limits of our own potential? Yogananda's life really seems to suggest that these incredible abilities might not be supernatural, but that they're a natural part of who we are, a part of our inheritance that, for most of us, remains completely untapped.